India's sustainable future begins here. Welcome to the podcast, The Carbon Circle. Hi, I'm your host, Roshan, founder and CEO of Carbon Mandal. This is where we bring you clear, practical insights from industry leaders who are helping build a sustainable Bharat. If you're somebody who believes in India's sustainable journey, hit the subscribe button. Today we talk to Mr. Gaurav Agnihotri, Head of Business Development at Waaree Group, on a very interesting topic called green hydrogen. We touch upon a wide range of topics, including why it matters, where India stands when it comes to green hydrogen, and how it connects to the carbon markets. Let's begin.
Okay, so Gaurav, let's begin with a quick introduction so that the audience also get to understand what are the topics that we're covering for today.
Yeah.
So this part is just for the audience, but yeah. So for those of you watching, today with us we have Gaurav Agnihotri. It is best that we get to hear about him through him. So I will leave it to him maybe in the first part of the podcast. But for today's podcast session, the topic that we've chosen is India's green hydrogen push, opportunities, India's industry shifts, and the carbon market advantage. These are the few things that we're going to touch upon. And in the entire discourse, we will be looking up one, that is India's green hydrogen mission. What is the ambition and the ground reality? The second topic that we'll be touching upon is industrial applications. That is, where is a real demand for the green hydrogen? And then we'll move towards carbon markets, the monetizing opportunities that green hydrogen today has, and India's role in the global green hydrogen race. So these are the four broad topics that we'll be touching upon. So without any further ado, I'll directly jump to the first part of the entire podcast discourse, which is with the introduction of the guest today himself. So Gaurav, could you begin by introducing yourselves? More so, you have a background in multiple sectors and multiple industries.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
we could begin by the very start. Where did you begin your career? How did it progress? And where are you currently?
So, firstly, Roshan, thanks a lot for inviting me to your podcast. Really glad to be here. And to begin with, I am a mechanical engineer who has close to 2 decades of experience in India's energy sector. Uh, I started my career in the oil and gas sector around 20 years back. And I was working in one of the biggest oil refineries in the country, and I was into a hardcore engineering role. While working there, I thought it'll be good if I can get some real world experience and then get into an MBA, do an MBA course, so that I can also get the taste of the management, and how I can uh, you know get into a leadership role in the coming time. So I did my full-time MBA from Institute of Chartered Financial Accounting in sales and marketing. After that, I again joined an organization, a Swiss multinational company, where I worked with almost all the refineries in India. And I was again in sales and business development that time. We were three people, and from a business of 25 crore, we took it to more than 200 crores in 4 years. So it was a fantastic roller coaster journey that I had. Again, then shifted careers, and I went into the industrial wastewater sector and the evaporation market. There again, I worked in a multinational company. When it comes to green hydrogen, it's been 3 years since I'm in this fantastic field. We all know that sustainability is a very important word in today's times, where we are seeing the climate change being the real threat to all of us. It's very important to bring out sustainable solutions and replace fossil fuels as the main source of energy.
Energy.
So that is where green hydrogen is extremely important, and this is where playing I feel I'm playing a key part in shaping India's green hydrogen journey. I am working currently in Waaree Energies, Waaree Clean Energy Solutions, as a head of sales and business development. And just to give you a brief, Waaree Energies is the biggest solar PV module manufacturer in India, and Waaree Clean Energies, we are into the entire green hydrogen domain. And we are also coming up with a factory near Surat where we are going to manufacture state of the art electrolyzers. We have also got PLI from the Indian government for the manufacturing of electrolyzers as well as setting up a green hydrogen plant. So Waaree Clean Energy Solutions is one of the very few companies in India that not only has got PLI from the government, but it is actually executing projects on the ground. So very proud of that fact.
Right.
So this is a brief introduction about myself from a professional perspective. I am also a writer. I write a lot of articles. I wrote a book on oil and gas in 2013, and I've written more than 200 columns on the energy sector and on green hydrogen.
Right. I mean, it's an absolute privilege to have you today as our guest, Gaurav, and it is
Thanks,
lovely to
Roshan.
hear your journey starting out in the oil and gas sector and making the transition to the renewable side. Perhaps the your exposure to oil and gas has given you better understanding of the problem that oil and gas creates. Of course, it is vital for our energy security and all of that we today use. But today it has become a necessity that we shift towards sustainability, shift towards more renewable sources of energy, and green hydrogen
Absolutely.
seems to be one of those key solutions for the renewable energy shift, right? So with
Right.
that, I think we should begin by the simple questions to before we jump into the policy, the PLI schemes, and all of that. So if you could explain, I know if you were talking to a toddler and trying to answer this question, what is hydrogen? Why is hydrogen so important? And within hydrogen, what is green hydrogen, right?
I think yeah, that's a very important question, Roshan. I think thanks for addressing that. It's important for all of us to understand what is hydrogen. Then we should move on to green hydrogen. So hydrogen is basically the simplest and the most abundant element in the universe, and hydrogen is literally everywhere. It is the main ingredient for the stars, the sun, the water, and it is also the lightest element in the universe.
Right.
But here's the catch, that despite being in abundance, hydrogen is never found in pure form. Because what it does is it grabs other elements with its reactive electron. So that is the main difference between hydrogen and fossil fuels. If you look at fossil fuels, we can obtain them directly below the surface of the earth, right? We can obtain crude oil by
Correct.
drilling. But hydrogen cannot be obtained in a pure form. This is one of the biggest reasons why hydrogen could not become what fossil fuels are today. The green hydrogen, the concept of using hydrogen is not new. The only thing is now we are finding ways how to utilize, how to use that hydrogen. And now, as I said earlier, thanks to the ongoing climate change, the world has realized that it needs to find a sustainable alternative to a fossil fuel without any further delay. And this is where the role of green hydrogen becomes extremely crucial. So when I talk again about hydrogen, so majority of the hydrogen that we are utilizing today, it comes from natural gas or methane, which is CH4. It's a very simple formula. We all of us would have studied that in chemistry, and we obtain it through a process that is called steam methane reforming, or we call it SMR in our technical terms. Now, what's the problem here? The problem is that SMR produces hydrogen that contains 11, almost 11 to 12 kg of carbon dioxide per kg of hydrogen, which is
Mm.
not very good for the planet because CO2 pollutes the environment. And this hydrogen is basically called a gray hydrogen, which is not very environmental friendly. And this is where we welcome green hydrogen. The main difference is that the green hydrogen is mostly produced through electrolysis of water by using renewable energy, green energy, clean energy, like wind, solar, a combination of wind or solar, or also pumped hydro. But mostly it is wind and solar. And what's interesting to note is that the carbon footprint of that green hydrogen is extremely low. It
Mm.
is actually less than 2 kg CO2 per kg of hydrogen. And any hydrogen which has this kind of a carbon footprint, we'll call it green. And it is important to note that this is what forms the definition of green hydrogen. In different countries, there are different limits for the emissions. For example, in India, we have considered anything which is less than 2 kg CO2 per kg of hydrogen. And if the carbon emission is less than 2 kgs of CO2 from well to gate, that means from the extraction of raw materials till the factory gate, it will be called green. Similarly, in Europe, this figure is 3.38. This is 3.38 kg CO2 per kg of hydrogen from well to the end use. That means from the extraction of raw materials till the end use. Anything that has an emission below 3.38 kg per CO2 per kg of hydrogen will be called green in Europe. So different countries have different definitions of green hydrogen. But when it comes to India, we follow the rule it should be less than 2 kg CO2.
Right, right. So this hydrogen, what is the source for hydrogen? I mean, of course, methane is one source for the SMR process, but other than that, water seems to be the next viable option.
Absolutely. As I said, water is the actually the solution, and what makes it green is the renewable electricity. So we need to pass renewable electricity through this hydrogen, and then that H2O breaks into H2 and O2, and that H2 that is produced with the help of the electrolysis, the breaking down of water molecules, is what is known as green hydrogen.
Green hydrogen.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's absolutely amazing to also know the fact that I mean we when we use fossil, after post combustion the byproduct is CO2. One of the byproduct is
Yeah.
CO2, carbon dioxide, which is the problem for the climate change as we today know it,
Absolutely.
because it is one of the greenhouse gases. And in the case of hydrogen, the outcome is again water, right? So
Right.
so then there is no problem of this as well, right? So thank you for that lovely introduction that you gave to hydrogen and what is green hydrogen, what is gray hydrogen. I think this is important for a lot of us to understand that it is not just the source of fuel, but also how that source of fuel is being generated. Has it been generated through crude oil
Yeah.
support, or has it been generated through renewable energy sources? So green hydrogen, that's why is a little better. Okay, so now we'll jump to the next part, that is the India's
Yeah.
green hydrogen mission. So back in the year 2023, India launched its green hydrogen mission, which is a national green.
Yes.
Right. So, could
Right.
you talk about what this mission is all about, and how do you see this mission evolving in the coming years?
So the National Green Hydrogen Mission, as you said, was launched in 2023. The main aim of this mission is to promote the production, usage, and export of green hydrogen and its derivatives like green ammonia. If you look at this mission, Roshan, it has given a commitment of around 2.4 billion USD, and the basic aim of this mission is to make India produce 5 million metric tons per annum of green hydrogen by 2030, and to remove 50 million tons of carbon dioxide per year. And with this mission, India will attract close to 100 billion US dollars in
Mm.
investments. And what's one of the biggest advantages of this mission is that it's going to create more than 600,000 jobs. In fact, I should be thankful to the government of India that I'm sitting here giving a podcast, working in a huge multinational company, thanks to this mission, because even my job is a green job, right?
Yeah.
So it has in fact produced a lot of jobs, and it will produce green hydrogen. So it is a fantastic mission. And I'll give you a brief summary about this mission. So if you look at the funding allocation, out of the total 19,000 crores, 19,700 crores, somewhere close to that, around 17,490 crores is allocated for the green hydrogen production. So that is one of the things which is called a site scheme. And then the another scheme is for the electrolyzer manufacturing, where the government has allocated close to 4,440 crores. And all these schemes, the government has given PLIs. So many organizations have got incentives in rupees that they can use once they start manufacturing, once they start putting green hydrogen plants, once they start manufacturing electrolyzers in India. So
Mm.
these are some of the schemes where the government will give some support to the producers of green hydrogen and electrolyzers. And besides this, there are also, there is also funding for pilot projects. where around close to 496 crore has been allocated. There are pilot projects for shipping and ports, pilot projects for steel and fertilizer, where MOUs have been signed with major steel makers. And there are also, pilot projects for city local, city gas distribution business, where
Yeah.
the green hydrogen will be blended in natural gas. And then there is a green hydrogen certification scheme also that the government has launched, where any plant which is producing green hydrogen has to get itself certified. That is something very important. So that has also been launched. And another very important aspect of this mission is that there will be a fast tracking of these projects. There are a lot of environmental clearances, project clearances will be there. So a lot of these things will be happening on a fast track basis. And there will be SEZs that be set up by the government, where there will be a common land allocated to different producers. So this is a fantastic mission. And what I'm seeing is, from my experiences, that this mission is moving at a very fast pace. One thing is announcing things, announcing projects, and the second thing is executing it. So India is actually doing very well when it comes to the execution of these
Mhm.
policies. And
Mhm.
the best example for this will be the ongoing refinery tenders for the green hydrogen, where the government has mandated refineries to, use green hydrogen in their processes. Uh, you would be aware that we have already had a price discovery in India for the refinery tenders, which is rupees 397 per kg. That includes GST, and that this is for the IOCL Panipat project. One of the big companies has got that project in India. What does this show? It shows that India is no longer announcing policies. It
Right.
is implementing real commercial megawatt scale projects, big projects. So that is something which is fantastic. And I feel India is India will be one of the leaders in the green hydrogen domain in the coming time. You
Yeah.
can also see the SECI tenders, the green ammonia tenders for domestic use. Some of the tenders have been awarded, and some of the developers have got orders. So this is a very fantastic development, and I feel this green hydrogen mission project is actually a success.
Lovely. I mean, it's a lot of information there. But before I digress into the next topic, my immediate question as a follow-up to this is based on two things. The one keyword that I kept hearing is this word called as electrolyzer, right? Which is crucial for manufacturing of green hydrogen here, right? And when I was doing some reading, it almost seems as if India is dependent on countries outside India for electrolyzers, and it's being imported. And with this recent tariff war ongoing with the US, it's also going to affect this imports per se, right? What is your take on India relying on other countries for this electrolyzers? Do you think India can manufacture these things by itself? Do we have the tech yet, or how do you see this developing in the coming days?
Fantastic question. In my opinion, India is completely ready to take on this challenge. And as we speak, there are already electrolyzer factories, Roshan, that have been set up in India. In
Hmm.
fact, the organization where I work, Waaree Energies, Waaree Clean Energy Solutions Private Limited, we are already going to launch our electrolyzers in the market from the next year in the first quarter. We are going to roll out these electrolyzers, and these are going to be the electrolyzers which will have the best technical specifications, and fantastic. It will be very good for the customers. All it will be the state of the art technology that we'll be using. Not
Hmm.
only us, a lot of other companies are coming up with the electrolyzers. When I look at the US, if you see, India is not dependent on US for importing electrolyzers. So electrolyzers are usually coming either from Europe. A lot of Chinese manufacturers are there that already have installed many electrolyzers across the globe. So a lot of them come from China, and many, as I said, many companies have started manufacturing electrolyzers in India.
India as well.
So India is completely geared up for this challenge. In fact, the kind of projects I'm seeing that are going to come up, I think we need to produce these electrolyzers, in a very fast way. So I feel we are completely okay when it comes to the electrolyzer manufacturing.
That is good to know, and it also gives us some form of a confidence with the ongoing tariff wars, because there is a lot of
Yeah.
volatility in the market, and the dependency. I mean, since we are a global village today, the dependency on multiple countries and this tariff war ongoing, that brings in some doubt on how successful will this missions be,
So,
and then
so
given
Roshan,
the
I want to add one perspective here. As you are saying about the tariff wars, it's very important for India to be self-reliant when it
right,
comes to green hydrogen, right? It's important for us to have these technologies within the country. So, if we have these technologies, I think we'll be more self-reliant, and we can also focus on the export markets. There is a huge export potential that is present. There is a huge demand for green ammonia, green methanol in Europe, in Japan, South Korea. We can actually tap those demands from India. So I feel it's important for the producers and the developers and the manufacturers in India to take up this challenge and bring projects on ground, get the FIDs, get the financial investment decisions, final investment decisions, I'm sorry, for their projects, so that we can, take up this challenge and we can start rolling our products.
right, right. Thank you for giving that insight, Gaurav. I think it's important for us also. I mean, since you're an insider, you know the on ground work that is ongoing when it comes to green hydrogen, and coming and getting this confirmation from you. I think it gives us some confidence as Indians that we are now somewhere capable of producing our own and becoming self-reliant when it comes to production of green hydrogen to an extent.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. So,
Right.
so as a follow-up to the same, there are a couple of aspects that I would want you to throw light on. One is the importance of green ammonia. Where is it used? How is it used? And why is it so important? And the green methanol that you just mentioned, and how India can capitalize on this produce.
So, again, it's a very good question. So, if you look at, I'll again start with the basics. I'll start with the basics. Now, in order to feed a bigger and a wealthier global population, in the next coming time, in the next few decades, I'm also counting the rest of the world. We all need to increase the food production, right, Roshan? We need to increase the current levels of food productions needs to be increased to a substantial level. If because the people are getting wealthier, the nations are developing, we need more food on the plate. So what we need to do? We need to increase the crop yield, which
Right.
means we need more fertilizers, and that's where ammonia comes. So ammonia is the main intermediate product that is needed for the production of nitrogen based fertilizers, and the Haber-Bosch process is a main primary method for producing ammonia from nitrogen and gray hydrogen, and it actually produces close to 2% of the total global carbon dioxide
Emissions.
emissions.
Mm.
So when we use green hydrogen instead of gray hydrogen to produce ammonia, what we get is a green ammonia. And similarly, we if we use green hydrogen instead of gray, we will get green methanol also. Now what is happening is there are several companies, several developers in India that are planning big projects along the coastal lines, along the different ports in India, and they are targeting the domestic market, and also they are targeting the global markets. What I feel is that's important for these developers to get offtake, because once you get an offtake, or you get a confirmation from a user of ammonia that they are going to buy that ammonia from you, which we call offtake in our industry terms. We can get FID from the
Mhm.
investors, and
Mhm.
once you get FID from the investors, which is the final investment decision, these developers will go ahead with the projects.
Right.
So it all depends upon the offtakes and the FIDs. So these offtakes are happening. There are, these offtakes are under progress. Currently, there is one developer that has received FID in India.
Mhm.
And when it comes to green methanol, things are still still developing compared to green ammonia. Green ammonia is slightly ahead of green methanol. This is what I would like to tell you in this podcast. And I feel there is a tremendous potential for green ammonia. And again, when it comes to the domestic consumption, there is a SECI tender, there was a domestic tender that had a supply capacity of close to 750, 770 KTPA, where
Okay.
clean ammonia had to be given to different ammonia producers across the country. And SECI, which is the government of India's arm, they would be acting as they will be facilitating this entire, process, and they'll be charging some fees in that entire process. Those tenders, a few of them have been awarded in India, and they have
Okay.
been awarded at a very competitive rate. Some of the rates are, pretty low. So what I feel is that things are progressing in a good way. What is now important, according to me, there are two things. One is when it comes to the green ammonia export projects, we should get FIDs. The company should, get offtakes from different, users of green ammonia. And when it comes to India, the projects should come on ground
Right.
at a good pace so that the projects are executed and the green ammonia is being sold.
Right. Right.
So
Right.
yes, I think overall it's a very positive scenario, and I think things will become even clear in the next 6 to 7 months, in my
Absolutely.
opinion.
I think since we're closing in on the 2030 mark as a part of the national green hydrogen mission. Uh, I mean, I would be coming to the supply and demand side of it. I mean, how
Yeah.
close are we to the set mark of 5 million metric tons, and how much more are we to go? So,
Yes.
so
Okay.
we- yeah. So,
Yes.
my next question is fundamentally that. So we are moving or transitioning to the next subtopic, which is the industrial applications. I think we touched upon those parameters a bit, talking about green ammonia, green methanol, the functionalities there, the use cases there. But where is the real demand coming from, Gaurav? Is it from the domestic markets, or do we have a lot of demand that is showing up in the international markets as well? Where is the real demand coming for the green hydrogen?
I read a recent report which will answer one of your questions, that out of the total 5 million metric ton, where are we when it comes to the projects? So actually, we have just started, I'll say.
Mm.
Compared to 5 MMT, we have so far the projects are only 0.01 MMT. So most of the projects that have come up are pilot projects.
Pilot
So
projects.
when it comes to the scale, it's pretty less. But one good thing is that the announced projects, the volume, when I take the volume of the projects that have been announced or have got FID, that is close to 12 million metric ton, which is
Okay.
more than double of the national target. And
Okay.
I'm very sure that many of the projects will not materialize. But even if 20 to 30% of these projects materialize, I think we'll be very close to hitting the target of 5 million
5
metric
million
tons
metric
per
tons.
annum, which is a pretty substantial, which is a very, it is an ambitious target, but nevertheless, we can achieve it. The second point is, if we focus on the target applications, then we get certain support from the government, from the industry. I think we can get closer to the target. So I'll come to your next question on the applications. So
Hmm.
besides refinery, where I've already touched upon that, there is an application of green hydrogen. We have the steel sector. So the steel sector has a good application for green hydrogen. Basically, there's a process in refinery where I've already touched upon that, there is an application of green hydrogen. We have the steel sector. So the steel sector has a good application for green hydrogen. Basically, there's a process in the blast furnace, basic oxygen furnace, which we call BF-BOF route, which uses basically coal-derived coke to reduce iron ore, and it emits close to 2.2 tons of CO2 per ton of steel. And there, if we utilize green hydrogen, we can substantially reduce the carbon footprint.
Hmm.
And if we actually use green hydrogen in steel making in the blast furnace route, or the DRI route, which is the other route, what we'll get is called green steel. Although there is no specific definition of green steel at this stage, but it's very important for the makers, for the producers, and for countries like India, the exporters of steel. It may be important because there is a carbon border adjustment mechanism which is called CBAM, which it is a kind of a tariff which may penalize exporters who are emitting more than the set limits in Europe.
Correct.
I don't know whether this tariff will be applied or not. That is a matter of regulations and the diplomacy. But if it does, from 2026, the Indian exporters have to pay the difference between the emissions, and that will increase their export prices. So so that is one of the reasons for many developers to go ahead with the green projects. It will really help them for the exports and for decarbonizing, for their sustainability goals. So many
Right.
organizations in India, many steel companies are actually coming up with these the green hydrogen projects.
Right.
The next is there are certain applications in the chemical sector also. Hydrogenation is one of the application where it is used. Optical fiber is another application where green hydrogen is used. I'll not get into the technical details because it will become very complicated for the
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
listeners. But if you summarize, refineries, steel, chemicals, green and fertilizer sectors, city gas distribution, hydrogen blending with natural gas. That
Yeah.
is another application. We can actually blend hydrogen with natural gas in the range of 1 to 5% or even 10% in certain cases. But if the value goes beyond that, we'll have to change the technical specifications of the pipes and all. And there is an issue of embrittlement that may happen. So within the natural gas infrastructure, we can blend hydrogen to a certain limit. So that is another application where we can use green hydrogen. And some pilot projects have come up in India. One of the commercial projects in India was the downstream steel sector, where the hydrogen was used in the bell annealing application.
Mm.
And it basically the ammonia crackers and methanol crackers can be replaced with the green hydrogen plants.
Okay.
So there are applications, and if you want, I can also talk about what are the bottlenecks for these projects.
Yeah, we'll come to the bottleneck, Gaurav. But
Sure.
I also want to get your thoughts on the one other sector, which is the transportation sector, the use of hydrogen in the transportation sector. So there is a lot of this talk happening between EVs versus hydrogen fuel cells, which
Yeah.
is better, which is having better calorific value, and there is a lot of discussion, and we also have seen Elon Musk posting about it and things around that, right? With Toyota coming up with its own hydrogen fuel cell vehicles. And there is this EV camp which is watching for EVs as the best transport solution. So, what is your take? How do you see a green hydrogen being a solution in the transportation sector? Is there a specific segment of the transportation that can benefit as a result of green hydrogen?
See, when it comes to the hydrogen powered cars, definitely they will come up in the coming time. Hydrogen is more relevant in big vehicles, which have got big bases, because it tends to increase the weight of the vehicle. But hydrogen vehicles are actually coming up. Hydrogen refueling station, HRS, is something which is coming up. Many companies are planning hydrogen refueling stations in India. That is again a fantastic development. In fact, thanks for bringing that into my attention, Roshan. That is another application
Yeah.
which is taking shape. Although it is slightly slow compared to the above cases, but definitely yes, they are coming up. Then there are the fuel cell vehicles, which use fuel cells to,
Right.
which is actually an opposite of a green hydrogen plant, where it is actually opposite, where H2 and hydrogen and oxygen combine and they produce power. And so that is something slightly opposite of the electrolysis process. But again, fuel cell vehicles also running on hydrogen is a case that will come up. So that is an application definitely which will come up. It will take some time. And I think when it comes to EVs, I think currently EV is finding more traction in the market. But when it comes to the big vehicles, the trucks and the buses, I think the hydrogen, there is a case for hydrogen. And there are certain companies that have launched hydrogen powered buses in the country. In fact, I read on LinkedIn a couple of weeks back that the country has also developed the first hydrogen powered engine, railway engine, right?
Yeah. Yeah. The
So
trains.
things are progressing. They will take commercial stage in the coming time.
Hmm. But it's definitely good to learn that there are a lot of this different applications where hydrogen is being used, and specifically green hydrogen. But
What I
if
wanted to tell you, Roshan,
yeah,
is that in fact I didn't. Thanks for bringing that into to my attention. That the public, when we talk about hydrogen to a common public, what they'll talk about is vehicles, right? That
correct.
it's either it's actually not the case. Vehicles definitely is there, but there is a huge application when it comes to the steel
Steel
sector, the
industry.
refinery, and
Yeah.
in fact, the steel, the refining, the chemicals. I think it constitutes almost 75 to 80% of the total hydrogen demand.
Demand. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's the biggest use case we have.
Yeah, I mean the reason I wanted to bring this question is to get that perspective right, because
Yeah,
uh,
yeah,
for a commoner or a common man, we assume hydrogen is largely in the transportation sector, but the demand for this particular energy carrier is largely seen in the steel sector, and it is one of the most energy intensive sector as well. So
steel, refineries, chemicals, and fertilizers. These four
absolutely.
sectors represent almost 80 to 85% of the total green hydrogen or a gray hydrogen demand.
Gray
This is what
hydrogen
I can say.
requirement.
Yeah.
Lovely, lovely. I think that that gives us a very good insight and an understanding of where the demand part is. Now, we have touched upon the demand side of green hydrogen. Let's talk about the supply side. I think you touched upon that a bit, because out of the 5 million metric tons that we have aimed by 2030, you said we have hardly reached 0.1% of that requirement. So what is the kind of opportunity? I mean, I would want to see this as an opportunity for Indian manufacturers and Indian industries to take on this. So we clearly see there is a demand, and with policies like CBAM coming into play, and even India it's creating its own carbon markets here. So there is an incentive for decarbonization of the industry supply chain, right? So how do you see this? The supply side of green hydrogen. How do you see this taking shape leading up to 2030? I mean, you did mention that there is a lot of projects that are approved, but how many of them materialize? That is also a question mark. So what is your take on this, and do you have any thoughts or comments on the policy side of
Yeah.
the
So I'll quickly give you my perspective on what I feel should be, should be certain measures that will support the supply side. Because as I told you, the lot of projects have been announced, but it's important that these projects should come on ground. So
right?
I think one of the mechanism will be the contract for difference or viability gap funding that can, offset the green premium in certain applications, and where in certain places the cost of gray is higher than the green. So there has to be some kind of a viability gap funding. In fact, India's site scheme, which I touched upon earlier, can be considered a partial CFD initiative, because
Mm,
it is actually offering incentives per kg of green hydrogen, green ammonia, for production of green hydrogen and electrolyzer manufacturing. Now the question is, are these incentives adequate to fully bridge the green premium?
yeah,
That is a question. I'll keep it open for the readers. I won't give any comment on that. That is something which is important. Then bankable offtake agreements that I said, it's important for the offtakes to happen, for these projects to get, the deals. People should buy, right? There is a supply. There has to be a demand also. So the offtakes have to come into place. Again, fantastic example is the Seki's, this 720 KTPA green ammonia tender is a good step, where a lot of offtakes are happening. I expect the green ammonia of the export market. I expect a lot of offtakes to happen in the coming time also. So that will really support, because once the offtake happens, the FID happens, and once the
right.
FID happens, the projects come. So this is important. A robust carbon pricing mechanism is important. Now, a strong pricing framework, whether through taxation or through trading or compliance market, whatever you call it, can level a playing field by internalizing the cost of gray hydrogen. So that is something very good. And by sources, I'm hearing that we will have a proper market in India by next year. A
Yeah,
CCTS market will be launched in 2026, which we'll talk about later in this discussion. Then
sure.
there has to be a procurement mandate from the government. I think that will be very helpful to the industry. What I'm talking about is a green hydrogen purchase obligations, which
Correct.
may be similar to renewable purchase obligations. That could be mandated for certain large industrial consumers. there will be many applications where, for example, a luxury segment, a car segment, where the cost of a car is so high, the consumer is giving such a high premium that if you just add a cost of green hydrogen, it doesn't make any difference, to be
Yes.
honest. So that if those procurement mandates come, then the demand will automatically increase, right? So if there are certain mandates in the steel sector, in the manufacturing sector for green hydrogen, that will really support the industry. And then the access to low cost financing is very important in
Mm.
projects. If we get certain low finance options, then the developers will be more indulged in taking small C&I projects at competitive rates. And then I feel certain clear policy signals, regulatory stability is very important, certification is very important. As I
Mhm.
told you that India has already launched its green hydrogen certification. Kudos to our ministry, the MNRE, for doing that. That is important. And it's important to collaborate with different countries. International collaboration is extremely important. I see a lot of good things happening between the European Union and the Indian government. I think such collaborations should continue. India is also actively engaging with countries, across the Middle East, the Southeast Asia, where we are trying to build supply chains and tapping the established infrastructure in shipping and large scale demand. So India is actually doing that. There are several cases which you can find on the internet. So
Right.
these are some of the things which will support the demand and
Surely.
will facilitate supply in the coming time.
Yeah, surely. So it is, I mean, by the from what you have told me right now, I see there is a positive outlook here on the supply side as well, because India definitely has the potential of, scaling its
Yeah.
production capacities, and provided that we also find added policy which are favorable for green hydrogen production, perhaps it will allow for a faster scaling as well,
Right.
right? Right.
Right.
Awesome. Awesome. So let's now switch to the next segment, or the next topic for this podcast, which is the carbon market connection. And I think somewhere we have slightly touched upon this pointers that among the incentives that, or the policies that can come up, one among the policies, or sort of market incentives, is the carbon trading schemes,
Yeah.
right? And it is
Right.
very prominent in the EU right now, because EU has something called as EU emission trading scheme, where they have
Right.
capped certain highly carbon intensive companies year on year, and this is, the cap is being bought down year on year, which mandates the companies to opt for decarbonizing its own supply chain, right? And it is somewhere being felt in Indian industries also, when we work with industries today, given there is right now a reporting framework called as BRSR, where they have to report they disclose their carbon numbers and things like that, and it is
Yes.
likely going to take shape in the coming years, leading up to 2030 or maybe 2070, since India's committed for a net zero commitment by 2070. So it is likely heading that direction. So I mean, right now, one of the pricing that you mentioned is 397 rupees for every kg of hydrogen. That's the pricing there. What
That's the price for the refinery tender that was discovered in the IOCL Panipat tender. Yeah.
Right,
So
right.
that's the price that went to. So I just wanted to clarify that point. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So what is the likely carbon credit opportunities is the green hydrogen space opting for? Does it
Okay.
require some special privileges as such?
Okay. Thanks for asking this, Roshan. Okay. So for the sake of the for the listeners, I'll give certain perspective on what is the carbon pricing. So there are two forms of carbon pricing that we know. One is the carbon tax and one is the cap and trade mechanism, right?
Correct.
So each of these mechanism basically puts the price of on carbon, but in different ways. So the carbon tax, what it does is it directly sets the price on carbon by defining a certain tax rate on greenhouse emission gases, and it's mostly for the fossil fuels. And it
Right.
makes this is easier for the businesses to plan future investments. And it is also imposed mostly by the governments on fossil fuels like coal, oil and gas on their based on their carbon content. On the other hand, the cap and trade mechanism, or the ETS scheme that you said, emission trading scheme, Now the government will set a total cap on emissions, right, and distribute or auctions the permits to the emitters. So the companies, the organizations can buy and sell these allowances, creating a market for carbon emissions.
Right.
And then without a doubt, a cap limit, limits the total emissions of a group, of industries or the entire economy. So in this system, what happens is that the company receives or purchases allowances representing the right to emit a specific amount of CO2. And if the company emits less than its allowances, it can actually sell the surplus to other companies. And similarly, if a company exceeds the allowance levels, what happens is it has to buy more. So the European Union emission trading system, as you rightly said, is the largest and the most established cap and trade systems in the world. And it covers close to, I think, 11,000 power plants, factories
Yeah.
across Europe. And in fact, in Europe, I think Sweden and Finland are the pioneers of, this carbon pricing. Correct me if I'm wrong,
No,
because
no, they
I've
are.
heard
They are.
that I think Finland was the first country to introduce carbon tax in 1990.
Hmm.
So it's, and again, when we join this with the Paris Agreement, what does the Article 6 of the Paris Agreement say? It says that the countries can trade emission reductions. So the carbon market will grow even further if this 6 point Article 6 of the Paris Agreement is taken. Carbon tax, what it does is it directly sets the price on carbon by defining a certain tax rate on greenhouse emission gases. And it's mostly for the fossil fuels, and it
Right.
makes this is easier for the businesses to plan future investments. And it is also imposed mostly by the governments on fossil fuels like coal, oil and gas on their based on their carbon content. On the other hand, the cap and trade mechanism, or the ETS scheme that you said, emission trading scheme, now the government will set a total cap on emissions, right, and distribute or auctions the permits to the emitters. So the companies, the organizations can buy and sell these allowances, creating a market for carbon emissions.
Right.
And then without a doubt, a cap limit, limits the total emissions of a group, of industries or the entire economy. So in this system, what happens is that the company receives or purchases allowances representing the right to emit a specific amount of CO2. And if the company emits less than its allowances, it can actually sell the surplus to other companies. And similarly, if a company exceeds the allowance levels, what happens is it has to buy more. So the European Union emission trading system, as you rightly said, is the largest and the most established cap and trade systems in the world. And it covers close to, I think, 11,000 power plants, factories
Yeah.
across Europe. And in fact, in Europe, I think Sweden and Finland are the pioneers of, this carbon pricing. Correct me if I'm wrong,
No,
because
no, they
I've
are. They
heard
are.
that I think Finland was the first country to introduce carbon tax in 1990.
Hmm.
So it's, and again, when we join this with the Paris Agreement, what does the Article 6 of the Paris Agreement say? It says that the countries can trade emission reductions. So the carbon market will grow even further if this 6 point Article 6 of the Paris Agreement is taken. So if you look at the recent years, I think our new government by our Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi, when he came to power, we have seen a very rapid progress when it comes to a regulated pricing mechanism. So the government has been working on these mechanisms since last few years. And very soon we will be having this, this emission trading system, both a voluntary and a compliance market by 2026. I'm very confident that this is going to happen very soon. And it will help green hydrogen because there are two things. One is that when you are setting up these plants, there will be certain carbon credits that will be generated. So you can actually trade, you can actually utilize those carbon credits in your project. They will be helpful to you. You can either, incentivize them, or you can transfer these carbon credits, to whoever you want. So I
Yeah.
think this will tremendously help the green hydrogen sector. And definitely, if you look at the European market, I think the carbon price is 80 or 90 euro per ton.
Hmm.
Correct me if I'm wrong. It is close to that.
Yeah.
India currently it is on a much lesser scale. If I'm not wrong, it is much less. But I feel once the market we have a proper market in place, the price of carbon will increase, And definitely there is a lot of difference between gray and green, right? The gray will produce close to 12 kg CO2. And if you replace gray with green, it will be close to 2 kg CO2.
Yeah, that's
There will
almost
be a
10
difference of
kgs.
10
Yeah,
kg. So you can do the math. So this is going to change the way. This will be one of the incentives for the developers and the buyers of green hydrogen to set up
consider.
green hydrogen plants. So it's going to change the way we see green hydrogen.
Yeah, yeah. For a sustainable future, I think green hydrogen seems to be vital, important. It's one of the
Absolutely,
cleaner fuels that we have. And
absolutely.
given that decarbonization has now become necessary, I feel that carbon markets will play a very vital role.
They'll
I
play a very vital role. They are playing a very vital
vital
role, in
already.
my opinion. So because if you look at CBAM, what's happening, right? They have set a certain emission based on the carbon. Now, if any exporter is exporting and is emitting more, they will just deduct. They'll do the math. They'll differentiate between what is the limit, what is the actual overshoot, and they'll multiply it with the cost of carbon,
Correct.
and then they will levy that tax. So it is very important.
Yeah, yeah.
It'll change the way people trade. It'll change the way people do their business.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think we have covered a lot of aspects today:
Yeah.
green hydrogen, gray hydrogen, green ammonia, everything in between. So I have last two questions for you, which is one around the bottlenecks that we are today facing, and two is how can companies in India, small companies, startups, what are the opportunities that they can explore, and how can they benefit or how can they ride this wave of green hydrogen that's already set in place.
So I'll start with the last question
Bottlenecks.
that you have asked. Uh, there are a lot of opportunities in all the applications. There are opportunities in refineries. There are opportunities in green ammonia, opportunity in steel sector, chemical sector, and any company, whether it is a startup or it is a big organization, has an opportunity to get into these applications. The startups or small companies can either go directly or they can tie up with the existing producers, and they need to bring some value to the chain. Maybe they
Correct.
can bring some kind of a low financing option, they can bring some investors on board, or they can bring certain kind of an expertise by the members who are the part of that startup. So in short, fantastic opportunities. There are several opportunities across the segment. And when I look at the bottleneck, I don't want to sound negative or pessimistic. I want to sound a bit positive. So on the positive end, I would want the projects that have been announced. The projects should be executed in a timely manner and in a proper cost-effective manner. So that is the first point. The second point is I expect the offtakes to happen, because once we get the offtakes, we'll get the FIDs and the projects will come on ground. And third is I feel there should be certain demand side mandates
Yeah.
that should come, in place. The government, the MNRE is doing a fantastic job in, supporting through their side scheme. Different incentives are already there. Once we get certain demand mandates plus the carbon markets, I think it'll be an added push to the industry. And
Hmm.
I'm very sure by 2030, we will be very close to the target. We may even exceed it. Who knows?
Touch wood.
Touch wood. Yeah, touch wood.
Touch wood. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a positive, and I myself have been following this space for quite some time since we deal with sustainability for far too long. My one sort of it is not a negative, rather it's also that the entry seems to be a little difficult into the space. It's not a complaint, right? For because I see there is a lot of you know checks that is required, approvals that is required for setting up the plan, the scale is required, and all of this. So the entry barriers are perhaps high. Do you have the same opinion on that?
In fact, I completely differ from your opinion, and I don't blame you because you're not an industry insider.
Correct.
I think it's very easy to get into green hydrogen.
Hmm.
Nobody is stopping you from setting up a small pilot scale plant. There is no restriction on the capacity. go for a kilowatt size plant, build a pilot plant. There are there are several schemes that MNRE is coming up for pilots. If you
Mm-hmm.
want to, you want to show a use case in green hydrogen in a different application, the MNRE, the government is willing to support you.
Well, that's
So
that's
there are several opportunities, and size is not the matter. In fact, there are several plants. If you do a Google, there are several pilot scale plants which are already functional in India. There is
mm-hmm.
a commercial plant, steel plant, which is functional since last 1 year. There are several pilot scale plants which are already functional in India. So I feel the size doesn't matter here. The intent matters.
The intent matters. Okay. I mean, I
And
think.
the approvals are pretty fast, in my opinion. You don't need there are the set of rules, the set of approvals, the guidelines are well defined. For
Mm-hmm.
example, if you want to set up a large plant, if you want to set up a storage or a compressor, we have a PISO approval that is required, because hydrogen is kind of people consider it to be explosive or something. I don't want
Explosive.
to get
Yes.
into that, but yeah. So if you want storage, there has to be a proper approval taken. So there are rules and regulations that are set by the government. You need to approach the right people and get it in the right time, and I don't think so there's an issue in that.
So what are the biggest challenges, according to you, Gaurav, for as an entry? Is it just capital, or are there
See, it's
expertise that I
the
think our country right now has?
See, the biggest, it's actually not a very simple question to answer, to be honest, because the challenges depends upon the applications, the kind of projects. So if you ask me an overall challenge, I think one is to get, you know, define, justify, setting up a green hydrogen, which is of there are several justifications, but the willingness to pay, I won't
Hmm.
say green premium, but to willingness to convert from gray to green has to
Green.
be there. Has to be there for the industry. The industry needs to know this is the time we need to do this. Otherwise, we don't have much time left. Look at what's happening in Delhi. Look at what's happening in Mumbai. There's a weather change. Now there is no set pattern for monsoon
Yeah.
in Delhi. For it's very difficult to live for 3 4 months because it's so hot. All this is climate change, right? Why it is happening? So if we start thinking on a holistic scale and then look at the basics, which are definitely there, which I've been speaking about, I think it will be fairly easy to go ahead with these decisions. But of course, there are several complexities which are there. So the
Absolutely.
biggest challenge is to actually go ahead and set
Start.
up a project, but it's
Right.
happening. And this is
So
what, if something is easy, everybody will be doing it, right? So
yeah,
there
that
are
is that is
certain
that is that
challenges.
is very true. But as far as
Yeah,
expertise goes, do you feel India is having the necessary expertise in this field?
absolutely. India has a fantastic expertise. See, in green hydrogen is basically the expertise in RE, expertise in gas. We have several people who are experts in RE. I am from a company which has several RE experts. It's one of the
Right.
pioneers in solar. We have several people. We have experts in RE. We have experts in gas. There is no dearth of experts in
Right.
India.
Right. So with that, I think it would be right to say that we have all the necessary ingredients to make this work.
Right.
Perhaps it is only about following up and the intent. With intent, if we follow up, perhaps we'll release that target of 5 million metric tons.
If
Right?
we follow the plan, if we execute it as per what we are supposed to do, we'll reach there. I'm very sure.
Absolutely, absolutely. Gaurav, thank you so much. It was lovely. I think we touched upon multiple aspects in the last 1 hour, starting with the fundamentals of green hydrogen, looking up what is gray hydrogen and everything around that. We also looked at the bottlenecks. We also looked at the market incentives, the trading schemes, and the various projects that is coming up in India, and also discussed on the challenges that are today being faced by industry insiders. I think as such as you are more aware of that, and it is important that you've highlighted that what are the some key areas that the government can step in and allow for better or faster scaling of this green hydrogen projects. So thank you so much, Gaurav. It was a pleasure talking to you, and I believe you must have a lot more to share since you deal with the renewables and green hydrogen space day in day out. I would I mean plan for maybe a second podcast sometime later. Maybe we can pick a specific
Sure.
topic and dwell a little deeper into those areas. But thank you so much, Gaurav. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Roshan. I think I had a fantastic time, and I hope I was useful for the last 1 hour. I could give you some
More
perspective
than useful.
on green hydrogen, and I do look forward to talking to you on the other topics as well. Of course, there
Like,
is a lot more to share,
yeah,
but
yeah,
I think for
likewise.
now, this is good enough.
So if someone were to reach out to you, where they can get in connection or contact with you?
So I'm pretty active, Roshan, on LinkedIn and X, which was formerly Twitter,
Twitter.
by the name Gaurav. So I'll be more than happy to engage with the readers and the viewers of the podcast.
Lovely. Gaurav has a lovely LinkedIn profile, so you can get in touch with him on LinkedIn. And as he rightly mentioned, he also is an author of a book. So there is a lot more for you to read there. So please do get in touch with him if you have any questions pertaining to green hydrogen.
And just to add, Roshan, just one last point to those who have some industrial requirements, I'm more than willing to work with them as well
Yeah, yeah.
on the professional front. So more than happy to serve
Engage.
the customers and engage with customers as well.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely,
Yes,
absolutely. I think that's vital. When we have a very valid service provider, it's sometimes difficult to find where they exist. So
yes.
now we
So we
have
are
an
the right people. We have all kinds of solutions at Waaree Clean Energy Solutions. So more than happy to engage with potential
great.
opportunities as
For all of you who are looking for sustainability consulting services, please do reach out to Carbon Mandal. We have a web page, we have a LinkedIn profile, so feel free to. We are always up for conversations. Thank you so much, Gaurav. Thank you.
well. Okay, thank you. Bye. Have a
Yeah.
nice day.